Oh my God. I'm just going to tell you something that I am going to be really, really naughty. And I'm going to throw away my very well-rehearsed TED talk. And the reason is because I'm actually terrified. My pulse in my neck is going completely mental. And one of the reasons it's going mental is because I'm in Brighton. And the thing is Brighton means a lot to me. I've got a lot of emotional connection here. And this is the place my parents, Anita and Gordon RODDICK, opened up their first shop. I spent a lot of my childhood just around the corner. And the thing is, I love Brighton. I don't believe my parents could start their company in any other place than a place that is ready to embrace new ideas, who are in an oasis of conservatism. They are an oasis in a conservative county, and with innovative thinkers. So it means a lot for me to be here, and I'm crapping myself. So I've got that out of the way. I've chucked out my speech. And the thing is what my parents did, and I'm a real advocate. I'm like their biggest fan. I spent my whole childhood hating them and hating their company. And I've actually grown up to think what they did was genius. What they did was genius because you know what they have done? They've created a blueprint. They have created a blueprint that each and every one of us who occupy the labor force and also occupy business should copy. And because you know what? It worked. What they did worked. They made a lot of money, not only for themselves, but for a lot of people. They shared their wealth. And they did that based on as least harm possible. Their company did not cause any harm. But not only that, it was a huge contributor, a positive contributor to society. That proves that we can make money from doing good. And the most important thing that it proves is that actually, in order to make money in that way, we've got to share. We've got to have an economy that shares. So that's my throw it out of the window talk. And I really want to do you guys proud, because actually it means a lot to me that actually I can offer something today that you maybe can take away. Now, there's been something bothering me quite a lot. And I keep on thinking in it, and I'm thinking in it again and again and again. And I have a confession to make. And that confession is, when people talk about world peace, I find it deeply, deeply irritating. I literally want to scream. And one of the reasons that I want to scream, because when I think about the world as it stands today and all of the things that we're reading in the newspapers, I think it all comes down to economics. It all comes down. Economics is the driving force of our reality. Money underpins everything that we do. It is actually the forecast of our future. Where we plan to spend our money is actually the forecast of where we're driving the world. So when I think about that, I think, how can we really buy into the concept of peace when there is no industry that represents it? I think it's quite an interesting idea myself. So the idea is that actually, when you think about war, we can directly relate a whole industry that makes a huge amount of profits to the outcome of war. Apparently, from the Institute of Economics and Peace, they had estimated in 2012 alone that actually there was $9.46 trillion spent on global conflict. That is a lot of money. And we all know where we place our money is where money is generated. So that's my point of the day. So the thing is about when you think about an industry, a profitable industry that is attached to something like war, when you have an industry that is profitable, you have an industry that's based on three things, don't you? It's based on, all industries are based on three things. They're based on product, right? You have to have a product to be able to sell or a service to sell. And then basically you have to create a need. There has to be a need for that profit. But most importantly, there has to be growth. So here we have a profitable industry that's based on war that is ultimately driven by the idea of growth. Now, when you put some economic facts behind it, and you think about the economic equation of infinite growth, and you apply it to the industry of war, infinite growth, industry of war, what do we think our future is going to look like? Pretty bloody miserable. So I think this is a really interesting to look at in the terms of, actually, what is the purpose of our economic system? What is it for? We all know what drives our economic system. Our economic system is driven by the creation of production. It's driven by the generation of profit and growth. But what is its purpose? Why is it there? And this brings me back to the fact that actually what we need to do is we need to underpin our economic system with a purpose. And that purpose has to be the preservation and advancement of humanity, of us all. Else, where else are we driving it to? So that is the driving force, and this is what my parents brought me up to believe. They taught me that the ultimate true purpose of a business has to be for the positive contribution of society. And they didn't do anything really remarkable. They built their whole company based on simple, basic human civil values. Nothing extraordinary. Just thou shalt not do harm, and thou shalt try to be as honest as possible. And the premise of how they built their company was really basic, because they started their company when I was 5 years old, and by the time I was 19, they had over 2,000 shops, and it was one of the largest retail exports in the UK. So I grew up in a business that basically grew by 50% each year, right? So it was a phenomenal success. But the premise that they built their business under was a simple premise. They believed that kindness had a value attached to it. Every decision they made was based on kindness, right? And they believed by underpinning their business decisions with kindness that had a great return to it. And I think that that is a really important thing to be able to gift as a concept, that kindness has an ultimate value to it. And out of that value, there is a great return and a stability in that return. So the thing is my parents built a business and they broke every rule in the book, because they said the reason why they broke every rule is because they did not go to business school. They also have, and my father, who's still alive, and he built the company with my mum, basically said that metaphorically they would like to see the Harvard Business School burnt to the ground for all the harm it has contributed to. So the thing is my parents didn't have a concept that they were going to be as successful as they were. For what reason? Is that they were doing their business out of survival. So they had no concept that their business was going to grow. So they did everything organically. And what they did that was very different, and I think this is something that we really need to inject in the thinking and the philosophy of business. They didn't build a company or a corporation. They literally built something that represented who they were, the all of who they were, their whole personality. They had no differentiate between their personality that they had at home to the personality that they had at work. So that meant that any decision they made was based on their own moral compass. And this is what something each and every one of us needs to do, regardless of your position in the company that you work within, or the company that you own, or what you do, or how you do it. We all need to assume the responsibility of bringing in your own moral compass to work, because that is the most important value you have. That dictates not only who you are and how you measure within your own life, but it also will have a phenomenal effect on the world at large. They had no idea of the concept of people who leave their moral compass at the office door. And so because they had that concept, and because they did not see that they were building a business or a corporation, but what they actually did was build a community of people, and they believed that they were a part of a community. And what happens is, when you have a corporation that identifies itself as a community, you have a corporation that is not only answerable to the company that employs you, but you're answerable to each other that you are employed next to, and also you're answerable to yourself. So the greatest thing that they achieved is they achieved a community of people who worked together that actually demanded them to maintain their moral compass position. So whenever the body shop used to stray, their employees at the shop or in the factories used to literally shout down the doors and say, "That is not who we are. That is not what you're selling." And I think this is a really important factor. So that was one of the key things that they actually did. My mum employed me when I was 16 years old to be a part of the Department of Activism. And I had to go around and rebel-rouse the shop floor to complain about their management. It didn't really go down that well. But so what they ended up doing was they ended up creating a red letter system. Oh, thank you. You're very kind. Thank you. Sorry, guys. And that brings me to the fact that actually the most interesting thing about their company that I found is they actually created almost a democratic community within the workplace. They did this by really breaking down the concept of management by fear, because that is one of the most awful kind of cultures to work within, management by fear. And the way that they managed to do that was they did it in a number of ways. They created a safe environment for people to voice out their opinions and their complaints. And they implemented a thing called the red letter system that could bypass management and go straight to the directors. And actually, there was a guarantee that there would be absolutely no repercussions. And the directors had to actually answer the issue themselves. The other way that they did it is they created notice boards in the toilets. And those notice boards in the toilets, you could write anything down anonymously that you wanted to complain about the company. And again, those complaints had to be publicly answered. But the reality is very few people wrote anonymously. Most people put their names to their complaints, which shows really what a great achievement that they created. The thing is, when I think about what's going on right now and currently what the news is focusing on, and you really are starting to hear some reports, say Oxfam yesterday came out in the news talking about the ever-increasing wealth of the 1% and the 99% of us, which I should imagine is most of us here in this room, or all of us in this room. Our wealth, we're the 99%, our wealth is being viewed as stagnating. Not only stagnating, declining. And there's a lot of information out there to say that our children, my daughter, for instance, is going to find it very, very hard to supersede my wealth. She's going to be actually poorer than I am, and she's going to be dependent on my wealth in order to give her an economic security. Now, the thing is we need to kind of wake up. We need to wake up in the fact that actually, if we want to see change in the world, that actually the 99% of us are the people who not only create the workforce, But actually, it's up to us to make decisions within our workplace that are actually represent our politics and who we are, and also our personal priorities, like our family, our health, our happiness, but most importantly of all, our moral compass. So it's up to us to make those brave decisions, and also up to us to whistle-blow on bad business behavior. The only other way that we can actually affect change is to be very conscious on where we spend money. We have a power, right? We have a power, maybe a limited power in our little stratosphere, but still it is a power. And where we spend money will determine what kind of businesses we want to see grow. So the decisions in the businesses, in our workplace, we need to take control of, and we also need to take control of and be conscious in the way that we spend money. I think that's it. I'm over.